The morning was calm, and the sky was painted in soft shades of blue and gold. A light breeze brushed against the tarmac of the small private airport just outside Los Angeles. It was one of those quiet places where famous people came and went without much attention. The luxury jets parked in a neat line, their silver bodies shining under the morning sun. Among the handful of travelers that day, a tall man walked through the glass doors with a simple backpack slung over his shoulder. He wore a black hoodie, a pair of faded jeans, and old boots that looked like they had seen years of use. His hair was slightly messy, his beard untrimmed, and his calm eyes scanned the room as if he was looking for something familiar. To most people, he looked like an ordinary traveler, someone who maybe worked behind the scenes rather than someone used to luxury travel. That man was Keanu Reeves. He had arrived early, as he always did. He liked peace and quiet before flights, preferring to sit alone, sip some coffee, and watch planes move in the distance. Even though he had flown countless times in his life, he never lost that small sense of wonder when he saw the clouds from above. But this morning would not go as smoothly as he expected. Inside the terminal, the air smelled faintly of perfume and polished leather. A few employees stood behind the check-in counter, their smiles wide and polite. Each passenger that came in looked expensive: tailored suits, shiny watches, designer luggage that seemed to announce their importance before they even spoke. Near the counter stood a young employee in a crisp uniform. It was his third week on the job, and he was still learning the ropes. His name tag read Ethan, and he was determined to do everything perfectly. His manager had told him that morning, "Remember, this isn't a regular airport. Every client here expects first-class service. Keep your eyes open and treat our guests like royalty." Those words echoed in his head as he stood straight and watched people enter. When Keanu stepped in, Ethan's eyes immediately landed on him. For a second, he wasn't sure what to think. The man didn't look like the kind of person who usually came through this terminal. No flashy clothes, no assistant carrying his bags, no fancy phone in his hand. He looked like someone who might have taken a wrong turn and ended up here by accident. Ethan forced a polite smile and walked toward him. "Good morning, sir," he said, trying to sound professional. "Can I help you with something?" Keanu nodded softly. "Yeah, I have a flight booked. I think it's leaving around 10. Ethan's eyes quickly moved to the computer screen behind the desk. "Oh, you have a reservation? May I see your booking confirmation or ID, please?" Keanu reached into his pocket and handed him his ID. Ethan looked at it briefly but didn't recognize the name. The truth was, he wasn't much of a movie person. He had heard the name Keanu Reeves before, maybe on social media or in passing conversation, but he couldn't match it to the face standing before him now. The ID looked real, but the simplicity of Keanu's outfit and calm tone made him suspicious. "Sir," Ethan said, "this area is for private jet passengers. Are you sure you're supposed to be here?" Keanu smiled kindly, not offended in the least. "Yes, I think so. My assistant booked the flight for me. It's under Reeves." Ethan nodded slowly but still doubted him. He had seen people try to sneak into the lounge before. Photographers, fans, even people pretending to be assistants to celebrities. He didn't want to get in trouble for letting in the wrong person. "Just a moment, please," he said curtly and walked back to the counter. Keanu stepped aside, not wanting to cause a scene. He stood quietly near the window, watching a jet taxi across the runway. The gentle hum of engines filled the air. He didn't seem impatient or annoyed, just relaxed, as if he had all the time in the world. Meanwhile, Ethan leaned toward another staff member. "Hey, there's a guy who says he's got a flight booked under the name Reeves," he whispered. "Doesn't look like one of our usual clients. Could you check the system?" The woman behind the counter typed a few keys, glanced at the screen and nodded. "Yeah, there's a reservation under that name. Charter flight to New York, VIP service." Ethan blinked. "Really?" "Yep," she said, giving him a look that clearly meant don't judge people by their clothes. Feeling a little embarrassed, Ethan walked back toward Keanu. "Everything looks fine, sir. My apologies. I just needed to verify your booking." "No problem," Keanu replied softly. "You're just doing your job." He followed Ethan to the seating area where a few other passengers were waiting. Most of them glanced at him briefly and then looked away, not recognizing him or assuming he was someone's assistant. He didn't mind. In fact, he preferred it that way. Fame had its moments, but peace and anonymity were treasures. Keanu found a seat near the corner, away from the chatter of the other guests. He pulled out a small paperback book from his bag and began to read. It was an old novel, something he had read before, but he enjoyed the comfort of familiar words. Every few minutes he'd look up and watch the jets outside, his mind wandering somewhere between thought and calm silence. Across the room, Ethan was busy attending to a wealthy couple who had just arrived. Their luggage looked like it cost more than most cars. They demanded quick service, champagne, and a specific brand of bottled water. Ethan tried to please them, his voice rehearsed, his smile slightly forced. He couldn't help but notice that the quiet man in the corner seemed perfectly content, without any of those luxuries. After a while, Ethan walked past Keanu again and noticed that his shoes were slightly worn, the soles scuffed from use. He thought to himself, strange choice for someone flying private. But before he could think further, another passenger approached and Ethan went back to his duties. Minutes turned into an hour. The lounge buzzed softly with laughter, small talk, and the clinking of cups. Keanu remained silent, occasionally smiling at the staff who passed by. One of the cleaners accidentally bumped his table, spilling a few drops of coffee. Keanu immediately helped wipe it up, reassuring the worker, "It's all right, don't worry about it." The cleaner smiled in relief, whispering a thank you. That small moment didn't go unnoticed. Ethan watched from a distance, his earlier assumptions starting to feel a bit unfair. Something about the man's calmness didn't match the image of someone pretending to belong. There was a quiet confidence in the way he carried himself, humble, patient, and grounded. Still, Ethan didn't connect the dots. To him, Keanu was just another polite traveler, maybe a low-profile businessman. The truth was, he had unknowingly just spoken to one of the most famous and kind-hearted people in Hollywood. A few minutes later, a senior attendant entered the lounge. She was a woman in her 50s, graceful and confident, someone who had been in the industry long enough to recognize faces that others might miss. Her eyes instantly widened when she saw Keanu sitting quietly with his book. She smiled warmly and walked straight to him. "Mr. Reeves, good morning," she said brightly. "It's wonderful to see you again. We've prepared your flight. Would you like to board early or wait a few more minutes?" Ethan froze in place. The name, the tone, and the respect in her voice hit him all at once. He turned his head slowly, staring at the man he had just doubted. "Mr. Reeves?" he thought. "Wait, Keanu Reeves? The actor?" Keanu looked up from his book, smiling. "Morning. I'm fine waiting a bit, thank you. Just let me know when it's ready." The woman nodded and gestured to the staff nearby to start preparing the jet. Ethan's face turned pale. His stomach twisted with a mix of surprise and embarrassment. All those doubts, the tone he used earlier, it all came rushing back to him. Keanu stood up, stretched his back a little, and gave Ethan a small nod. "Thanks for helping me earlier," he said kindly, his voice calm and genuine. "You've got a tough job here." Ethan stammered, Thank you, sir. I'm really sorry about before. I didn't realize." "It's okay," Keanu interrupted gently. "You were just being careful." With that, he picked up his small backpack and followed the attendant toward the gate. The other passengers in the lounge suddenly realized who he was, whispering quietly among themselves. But Keanu didn't seem to notice or care. He just smiled, thanked the staff again, and walked out toward the waiting jet. Ethan stood still for a long moment after that, replaying the entire encounter in his head. He couldn't believe how humble the man had been. No arrogance, no frustration, just kindness. It was a lesson he knew he would never forget. Outside, the jet engines began to roar softly, and the aircraft slowly rolled down the runway. Through the window, Ethan watched it rise into the morning sky until it disappeared into the clouds. A small smile crossed his face as he whispered to himself, "Next time I'll think twice before judging someone by how they look." The day went on as usual, but for Ethan something had changed. The airport, the passengers, the rush of luxury, it all felt a little different now. Somewhere deep down he understood what real class looked like. And it wasn't in the clothes or the watches or the money. It was in the way a person treated others, no matter who they were. And that, he realized, was something you couldn't fake. The next morning, the airport staff were buzzing about the story. Everyone had heard what happened the day before, how a famous actor had been mistaken for an ordinary traveler. Some laughed softly, others felt a little sorry for the young employee who had made the mistake. But the one who couldn't stop thinking about it was Ethan. He came in early, even before his shift started. The moment he stepped through the glass doors, he glanced at the same seat where Keanu Reeves had waited quietly just the day before. The image stayed fresh in his mind. The way Keanu had sat with his book, the calm smile, and how he never showed the slightest hint of anger even after being doubted. Ethan sighed and straightened his uniform. He wanted to forget it, but something about that meeting kept playing in his head. He had worked with rich people, celebrities, and business executives, and most of them acted like the world revolved around them. Yet the one person who had every reason to demand special treatment didn't. As he walked to the counter, his coworker looked at him and smiled. "Rough day yesterday, huh?" Ethan chuckled nervously. "You could say that. He was nice to you, though," she said. "Anyone else would have made a scene." "Yeah," he replied quietly. That's what surprised me the most. He went through his morning routine, checking schedules, organizing guest lists, and preparing the lounge for arriving passengers. But his thoughts drifted. He wondered how someone so famous could be so patient. It didn't make sense to him. Fame usually changed people. He had seen it firsthand. But maybe Keanu was different. Maybe the stories he had heard online about his kindness were true. Hours passed and the day grew busy again. Private jets arrived and departed every hour. The lounge was filled with people in expensive suits talking loudly about deals and profits. The smell of coffee mixed with the faint sound of laughter. Ethan moved from guest to guest, doing his job with a polite smile, but something about the atmosphere felt hollow now. He couldn't stop comparing the noise of it all with the quiet presence of the man from yesterday. Around noon, a group of wealthy clients arrived, accompanied by their assistants. One of them snapped his fingers impatiently, complaining about a missing luggage tag. Another demanded that the lounge temperature be adjusted because it felt a little too warm. Ethan handled everything as calmly as he could, but inside, he felt tired. It wasn't physical exhaustion, it was emotional. The endless demands, the shallow complaints, the lack of gratitude, it all wore him down. In between tasks, he caught himself glancing toward the window again. For some reason, he half expected to see Keanu sitting there, quietly reading, maybe sipping coffee like before. But of course the seat was empty. He smiled faintly to himself, shaking his head. "You're imagining things," he muttered. Just then, his manager called out from behind the counter. "Ethan, can you assist the crew preparing for Flight 7A? The client will be arriving soon. It's another VIP." "Yes, sir," Ethan replied and walked toward the boarding gate. He checked the guest list, but the name didn't look familiar. He assumed it was another rich investor or business tycoon. Still, he promised himself he wouldn't repeat the same mistake as yesterday. No judging anyone by their appearance, not again. An hour later, the luxury car pulled up to the terminal entrance. A small crowd of staff gathered to greet the arriving guest. To Ethan's surprise, when the door opened, it wasn't some flashy billionaire in a designer suit. Instead, it was an elderly woman with kind eyes, wearing a simple sweater and holding a walking cane. She smiled warmly as she stepped out of the car. "Good afternoon, ma'am," Ethan greeted, taking her small bag. "Welcome to our terminal. May I assist you with check-in?" "Oh, thank you, young man," she said softly. "I'm not used to all this. My grandson booked this flight for me. He said it would be easier than flying commercial." Ethan smiled. "That's very thoughtful of him. He said someone named Keanu recommended this service," she added casually. "Do you know him?" Ethan froze for a second, blinking in surprise. "Keanu Reeves?" "Yes, dear," she said with a gentle laugh. "That's the one. He's a friend of my grandson. Said it's very comfortable flying here." Ethan couldn't believe it. The man he had mistaken for a regular traveler the day before had actually gone out of his way to recommend their service to others. Not only that, but he had helped bring in another customer, and he hadn't even mentioned it. As he helped the elderly woman to the seating area, Ethan's respect for Keanu grew even more. He wasn't just kind in public, he was genuine behind the scenes too. The thought warmed him inside. For the rest of that day, he worked with renewed energy. He smiled more, spoke softly, and treated each passenger with a little extra care. By evening, when his shift ended, Ethan sat quietly in the staff lounge. The sun was setting outside, casting long shadows across the floor. The noise of the airport had faded, leaving only the distant hum of engines and soft music from a nearby cafe. He leaned back in his chair and thought about how much had changed in just one day. He realized that kindness didn't come from money, fame, or power. It came from something deeper, the ability to treat others with respect even when no one was watching. That was what made Keanu different. He didn't act humble. He was humble. As days turned into weeks, Ethan carried that lesson with him. He found himself smiling more at people who seemed lost or unsure. When a cleaner dropped a tray, he rushed to help instead of calling someone else. When a passenger got upset over a delay, he listened patiently instead of defending himself. Little by little, he started to see how small gestures could change the tone of an entire day. One afternoon, a familiar figure walked into the terminal again. Ethan was at the desk finishing up a report when he looked up and almost did a double take. The same man, black hoodie, jeans, quiet smile, was standing by the door holding a small bag. Keanu Reeves was back. This time, Ethan didn't hesitate. He put down his work, straightened his uniform, and walked over with a genuine smile. "Welcome back, Mr. Reeves," he said warmly. "It's good to see you again." Keanu looked up, recognizing him immediately. "Hey, you're the one from last time," he said with a small grin. "Ethan, right?" Ethan nodded, surprised that he remembered his name. "Yes, sir. How have you been?" "Good," Keanu replied simply. "Just heading out for a short trip. Looks like a quiet day here." "It is," Ethan said, "and thank you for recommending our service. Your friend's grandmother had a great experience." Keanu chuckled softly. "She told me that. Said everyone treated her like royalty. I appreciate that." Ethan felt a wave of pride wash over him. It's the least we could do. For a few moments, they stood in comfortable silence. There was no rush, no awkwardness, when just two people sharing a quiet understanding. Then Keanu spoke again, his tone thoughtful. "You know, people remember how you make them feel more than anything else." Ethan nodded. "Yeah, I learned that from you." Keanu smiled, a warm, genuine smile that reached his eyes. "Glad to hear it." Soon the attendant came to inform Keanu that his flight was ready. Before leaving, he shook Ethan's hand firmly. "Keep up the good work," he said. "You've got the right attitude now." Ethan thanked him and watched as Keanu walked toward the gate, his figure framed by the golden light from the runway. The jet engine started to roar, and just like before, he disappeared into the open sky. But this time, the feeling was different. Ethan didn't feel embarrassed or uncertain. He felt inspired. He knew that what he had learned from that man would stay with him for a long time, maybe even for life. Later that night, as the terminal emptied out, Ethan took a moment to sit by the same window seat where Keanu had once waited. He looked outside at the quiet runway, lights blinking in the distance. The air was still, the stars faint but visible. He thought about how easily people judged others based on appearance. The clothes they wore, the money they spent, the cars they drove. But true worth, he realized, had nothing to do with any of that. It lived in the heart, in the way people treated one another when no one was watching, and sometimes it took a single moment or a single person to remind the world what kindness really looked like. A few days later, the small private terminal was unusually quiet. The sunlight poured through the wide glass windows, giving everything a soft, golden glow. Outside, the gentle hum of jet engines echoed faintly, and the smell of coffee lingered in the air. It was the kind of calm that only came in between the morning and afternoon rush. Ethan stood behind the counter, neatly arranging some papers and checking flight schedules. He liked quiet mornings like this. They gave him time to think, to breathe, and lately to reflect. Ever since that encounter with Keanu Reeves, his outlook on his job and on people had changed completely. He had started noticing things he hadn't before. The tired look on the cleaners' faces after long shifts, the way the drivers smiled when someone thanked them, the nervous excitement of first-time flyers. Before, he used to focus only on doing things right. Now he focused on doing them kindly. As he adjusted his name tag, he heard the door slide open. A gust of warm air rushed in, followed by a familiar voice. "Morning." Ethan looked up and instantly smiled. Keanu Reeves stood there again, holding his small backpack, looking exactly as he had before. Humble, simple, calm. No sunglasses, no fancy luggage, no assistant in sight. Just him. Mr. Reeves, Ethan said, his tone bright. Good to see you again. Keanu gave a small nod. Hey, Ethan, looks like you're keeping busy. Always, Ethan said, chuckling softly. Another flight today? Yeah, Keanu replied, setting his bag down. Short trip to San Francisco. Just for the day? Ethan took his details and began the check-in process. This time there was no doubt, no confusion. But as he worked, he noticed something different about Keanu. He seemed quieter than usual. Not sad exactly, but thoughtful, like someone carrying a heavy thought they didn't want to share. Ethan hesitated before asking, Everything all right, sir? Keanu looked up and gave a faint smile. Yeah, just thinking about a friend I lost recently. He used to travel with me sometimes. Ethan nodded, understanding immediately that it wasn't the kind of conversation to pry into. I'm sorry to hear that, he said gently. Thanks, Keanu said softly. Life can be fragile, you know. You think you have time and then suddenly you don't. The room went quiet for a few moments. Ethan didn't know what to say, but Keanu didn't seem to need words. He just needed silence, the comfortable kind that doesn't ask for answers. After a while, Keanu smiled again, breaking the mood. Anyway, how have you been? Still surviving the airport chaos? Ethan laughed. Barely. But it's been better lately. I think I've learned to be more patient. That's good, Keanu said. Patience is rare these days. As they talked, another staff member walked by, her eyes widening when she recognized Keanu. She whispered something to a coworker, and soon a small wave of quiet excitement spread through the staff lounge. But Keanu didn't seem to notice her mind. He treated everyone the same way he always did, with quiet respect and warmth. After check-in, Keanu walked over to the seating area and sat near the window. He placed his backpack beside him and pulled out a small notebook. For the next half hour, he sat writing something in it. Every now and then, he'd pause, stare outside at the planes, and then jot down a few more lines. Ethan watched him from the counter, curious but not intrusive. He could tell that whatever Keanu was writing meant something personal. Maybe it was a letter. Maybe just thoughts. There was something peaceful about the way he wrote, as if the world outside didn't matter. Then a sudden commotion broke the calm. A wealthy passenger stormed into the terminal, clearly upset. He was a regular client, someone everyone in the staff quietly dreaded dealing with. His voice was loud, his tone sharp. I've been waiting for 20 minutes. This is unacceptable. The other staff scrambled to calm him down. Ethan rushed over, trying to help. I'm so sorry, sir. We'll make sure your flight is ready right away. The man didn't care. He started complaining about everything. The air conditioning, the seating, the lack of staff. His words grew harsher with every sentence. The rest of the passengers turned to look, and the mood in the room shifted. Then something unexpected happened. Keanu stood up and slowly walked over. His expression was calm but firm. Hey, he said in a low, steady voice, maybe take a breath. These people are just doing their jobs. The man turned, clearly irritated. And who are you to tell me? He froze mid-sentence. His eyes widened slightly as he recognized Keanu Reeves standing in front of him. The anger on his face melted into awkward surprise. Oh, Mr. Reeves, I didn't realize. Keanu smiled gently. It's all right. We all have bad days. Just remember they're people too. The man's posture softened immediately. His voice dropped. You're right. I'm sorry, he muttered, glancing at the staff. I didn't mean to cause trouble. Ethan stood there stunned. He had seen angry passengers before, but no one had ever calmed someone down like that, with kindness instead of confrontation. The air in the room shifted again, this time toward quiet respect. The man went back to his seat, embarrassed but calmer. Keanu turned to Ethan and gave a small nod. You okay? Ethan nodded, still a little amazed. Yeah, that was incredible. Keanu shrugged lightly. Sometimes people just need to be reminded they're not the only ones in the world. Ethan smiled. You make it sound simple, Keanu chuckled. It usually is until ego gets in the way. They shared a quiet laugh, and the tension that had filled the room moments ago dissolved completely. The staff went back to their tasks, and for the rest of the day the atmosphere remained light. When the flight was ready, Ethan walked with Keanu toward the boarding gate. I've got to say, Ethan said with a grin, you're kind of a legend around here now. Keanu laughed softly. I don't know about that. I just try to do what feels right. As they reached the gate, the attendant opened the door to the runway. The soft wind from outside rushed in, carrying the faint scent of jet fuel. Keanu turned to Ethan and said quietly, "You know, I used to hate flying private. It felt too much. But now I see that it's not about luxury, it's about peace." "It gives you time to think," Ethan nodded. "You seem like someone who values peace a lot." Keanu smiled. "More than most things." He paused for a moment, as if remembering something. Then he reached into his backpack and pulled out a small folded piece of paper. "Here," he said, handing it to Ethan. "Something I wrote earlier." Ethan looked down at it, unsure. "For me?" "Yeah," Keanu said simply. "It's nothing big. Just a note." Ethan carefully unfolded it. Inside, in neat handwriting, were just a few lines. "Be kind even when it's unnoticed. That's when it matters most." Ethan looked up, speechless. "Thank you, sir. I don't even know what to say." Keanu smiled softly. "You don't have to say anything. Just keep being yourself." With that, he gave a small wave, slung his backpack over his shoulder, and stepped onto the runway. The warm wind ruffled his hair as he walked toward the waiting jet. A few moments later, the engines roared to life and the plane began to move. Ethan stood there, still holding the note in his hand. He watched as the jet lifted into the sky and disappeared into the clouds. The sunlight glinted off its wings, leaving behind only the faint echo of the engine's sound. When he finally went back inside, the other staff members were still whispering about what had happened. But Ethan didn't say much. He quietly slipped the note into his pocket, where he knew it would stay for a long time. That night, as he left the airport and walked home under the soft glow of streetlights, he thought about all the moments that had led up to this day. The misunderstanding, the apology, the lessons, the quiet wisdom. He realized that some people change your life not by doing grand things, but by showing you how simple goodness can be. And sometimes, those people walk in quietly, wearing old boots and a gentle smile, and remind you what being human really means. The next week brought another busy morning at the private terminal. The sunlight streamed through the glass windows and the hum of jets outside filled the quiet moments between passenger arrivals. The staff moved efficiently, their smiles polite but slightly forced as they greeted each person. For Ethan, though, the routine felt different now. The encounter with Keanu Reeves had changed the way he looked at his work and at people. He no longer rushed through tasks simply to finish. Instead, he focused on doing each thing thoughtfully, noticing the small details that made a difference to someone's day. He had arrived early that morning, preparing the lounge for a steady flow of clients. As he polished the countertop, he noticed the familiar shape of a man walking through the doors. His black hoodie, worn jeans, and small backpack were unmistakable. Keanu Reeves had returned. Ethan straightened instinctively, smiling as the actor gave a small nod in acknowledgement. "Good morning," Keanu said softly. "Looks like it's another busy day." "Good morning, sir," Ethan replied warmly. "Yes, it seems like it. We're ready for you." Keanu gave a quiet chuckle, his eyes scanning the room with calm curiosity. "I like coming here," he said. "It's peaceful."
"The other places just feel
rushed." Ethan nodded, understanding exactly what he meant. There was a sense of quiet efficiency in the terminal that many people overlooked, but Keanu appreciated it. That was part of what made him different. He noticed the small things and valued them, instead of always focusing on grandeur or attention. As Ethan checked the boarding list, he noticed a group of new employees being trained nearby. They were young, eager, and a little nervous, fumbling with their uniforms and schedules. One of them glanced at Keanu and whispered to a colleague, "Is that?" The other nodded, but they were too afraid to approach. Ethan caught the exchange and decided it was a good opportunity for a lesson in humility and kindness. He walked over to the group. "That's Mr. Reeves," he said quietly. "You may recognize him from movies, but don't treat him differently than anyone else. Be professional, polite, and respectful, like you would for any client. Most importantly, be human. That matters more than anything else." The young employees nodded, but Keanu's presence seemed to have a subtle effect on them already. They straightened their posture, careful not to fumble again. Meanwhile, Keanu had taken a seat near the window, as he often did. He opened his small notebook, flipping to a blank page. As he began to write, Ethan noticed how focused and serene he looked. It was a side of him that the public rarely saw, calm, thoughtful, and completely present. Just as Ethan was about to continue his tasks, a loud voice cut through the air. A client had arrived with a large entourage, and their presence immediately filled the room. The guest was wealthy, confident, and demanding, speaking sharply to the staff. "Where is my luggage?" the person demanded. "I expect everything to be perfect." The staff quickly moved to accommodate, but tension grew as the guest's complaints continued. Ethan felt his chest tighten, but before he could intervene, Keanu stood up. He walked toward the group, not in an intimidating way, but in a calm, quiet manner that naturally drew attention. The client paused mid-sentence, sensing that something different was happening. Keanu's voice was gentle but firm. "Excuse me," he said. "I understand you're frustrated, but these people are doing their best to help you. A little patience goes a long way." The client froze, recognizing the voice. Their eyes widened as they realized who was speaking to them. Keanu Reeves, the actor known worldwide, was standing right in front of them, calmly asking for respect toward the staff. The client started, clearly embarrassed. "I didn't realize—" Keanu smiled softly. "It's okay. We all have moments where we forget that everyone deserves kindness. Just remember it next time." The client nodded quickly, mumbling an apology before stepping back. The staff members around them exhaled quietly, relief visible on their faces. Ethan watched in awe. No raised voice, no harsh words, just gentle guidance and humility. Keanu had diffused a situation that could have ruined the morning for everyone, and he did it with a quiet grace that left a lasting impression. After the client had moved on, Keanu returned to his seat. He sat down, opened his notebook again, and began writing as if nothing had happened. It was a remarkable display of composure, the kind that only comes from true self-awareness. Ethan couldn't stop thinking about it. He realized that Keanu's actions weren't about fame or attention. They were about values: respect, empathy, patience, and humility. The way he carried himself made everyone around him feel calmer, safer, and more human. Later, as the boarding time approached, Keanu stood and gathered his belongings. Ethan accompanied him toward the gate, the warm sunlight streaming in from the glass doors. The engines of the private jet were already humming softly, ready for departure. "You know," Ethan said quietly, "you make everyone here feel different, more thoughtful, more patient." Keanu looked at him and smiled. "I don't think I do anything special. I just try to remember that everyone has their own struggles, their own moments of stress. If I can help even a little, why not?" Ethan nodded. "It's not easy to stay calm and kind all the time. Most people would have snapped or ignored the staff completely." Keanu chuckled lightly. "Maybe, but that's the easy way out. I'd rather try to make a day better than add to someone's stress. Small actions matter." As they approached the jet, Keanu paused to shake hands with a few staff members individually. He thanked them for their work, asked how they were doing, and offered small words of encouragement. It was clear he remembered faces and names from previous visits. The staff were left astonished. They had treated celebrities before, but no one had taken the time to make them feel appreciated as people, not just clients. Ethan felt a surge of respect for Keanu. Here was someone who could have demanded anything: special treatment, attention, or even a private area just for himself, but he didn't. Instead, he uplifted the people around him, quietly and gracefully. Before boarding, Keanu turned to Ethan once more. "Remember, it's the small gestures," he said. "A kind word, a helping hand, or just a smile. You never know how much it matters to someone else." Ethan nodded, feeling the weight of those words. "I won't forget," he said. Keanu gave a faint, knowing smile. "Good. Keep it up." He stepped onto the jet, the engines beginning to roar as the boarding process finished. The sunlight reflected off the sleek metal body, highlighting every curve of the aircraft. Ethan watched as the jet taxied down the runway and slowly lifted into the sky. For a moment, he felt as if the world had paused, the quiet hum of the engines and the warm sunlight creating a perfect memory. After the flight left, the terminal returned to its usual pace. New clients arrived, employees moved quickly to meet their needs, and the soft background music played on. Yet for Ethan, everything felt a little different. He carried with him the memory of Keanu's calm presence, his humility, and his genuine kindness. The rest of the day went smoothly. Every interaction Ethan had with passengers or staff was informed by what he had witnessed. He found himself offering a reassuring word, a patient smile, or an extra moment of attention. and each time he noticed subtle changes in the people around him. A quieter tone, a softer word, a grateful glance. That evening, as the terminal emptied and the sun set behind the distant mountains, Ethan lingered by the large windows overlooking the runway. The sky glowed in shades of orange and purple, the planes now still and silent. He thought about Keanu Reeves and the small but profound impact one person could have. It wasn't wealth or fame that mattered. It was how you treated others, how you made them feel, and how you carried yourself even in ordinary moments. Ethan knew that this day, and the lessons he had learned from it, would stay with him forever. He felt inspired to be better, not for recognition or reward, but simply because it was the right thing to do. And in that quiet terminal, with the golden light casting long shadows across the floor, he realized that true greatness didn't need to announce itself. It revealed itself quietly through actions, respect, and kindness for Ethan and for everyone who witnessed it. Keanu Reeves had shown what it really meant to be human, patient, humble, and genuinely considerate of others. The week went on like any other at the private terminal, yet for Ethan nothing felt ordinary. The lessons from Keanu Reeves's visit stayed with him, guiding the way he treated passengers, staff, and even himself. He noticed the smallest gestures, a smile from a tired cleaner, a polite thank you from a nervous traveler, a quiet nod to a coworker who had worked long hours. Each action reminded him of what he had witnessed, that true respect and kindness left an impact far greater than words or money ever could. That morning began with the gentle hum of planes outside and the soft glow of sunlight spilling through the glass walls of the lounge. Ethan arrived early, taking a deep breath and enjoying the calm before the rush. He reviewed the boarding schedules and flight manifests, carefully organizing everything to ensure the day would run smoothly. In the back of his mind, he replayed the moments of the previous week. Keanu walking quietly through the terminal, calming an irritable client with a single kind word, and then most importantly, showing genuine interest in the staff as people, not just employees serving a celebrity. As Ethan checked the list of passengers arriving that morning, a familiar figure entered the terminal. Keanu Reeves. His presence was quiet yet noticeable, a calm energy that seemed to settle the room as he walked through the doors. He wore his usual casual outfit, a soft hoodie, faded jeans, and worn boots, carrying only a small backpack. There were no cameras, no security entourage, and no fans crowding him. Just a man who valued peace and simplicity as he always did. "Good morning, Mr. Reeves," Ethan greeted warmly, straightening his uniform. "Welcome back." "Good morning, Ethan," Keanu replied softly, his voice calm and friendly. "It's good to be back. Looks like things are busy today," Ethan smiled. "Always. But it's the kind of busy that keeps you sharp." Keanu nodded, his eyes scanning the room, pausing briefly to watch the staff prepare for the day. There was a quiet satisfaction in his demeanor, a sense that he appreciated the effort behind every action, even if the world outside never noticed. The morning moved quickly. Several flights arrived and departed, and the lounge filled with passengers of all kinds. Some were wealthy and demanding, accustomed to luxury and immediacy. Others were nervous travelers, first-time flyers who had never experienced private travel. Ethan found himself approaching each person differently now, remembering Keanu's example, to treat every individual with respect, patience, and understanding. By late morning, a commotion broke the routine. A young boy, no older than 10, had become separated from his parents while trying to watch the jets outside. He wandered near the entrance, wide-eyed and frightened. Ethan noticed immediately and moved quickly, crouching down to speak gently to the child. "Hey there," he said softly. "Are you lost?" The boy nodded, tears welling in his eyes. Ethan stayed calm, speaking in a comforting tone. "It's okay. I'll help you find your parents. What's your name?" As Ethan guided the boy toward a quieter corner, he noticed Keanu walking toward them. The actor knelt down next to the child, his eyes kind and his presence calming. "Hey there," Keanu said gently. "You're safe now. We'll make sure you get back to your parents." The boy's face lit up slightly, recognizing the warmth in Keanu's tone. "Really?" he asked, still sniffing. "Really," Keanu replied. "We've got this." Together, Ethan and Keanu held the boy's hand as they walked toward the parent waiting area. Moments later, the boy's parents arrived, panic etched on their faces. Their relief was immediate as they hugged their child tightly. "Thank you," the mother said, her voice trembling. "We didn't know what to do." Keanu shook his head softly. "No need to thank me. Everyone deserves a safe moment. That's all that matters." Ethan watched silently, amazed again at the humility and kindness that came so naturally to him. It wasn't about being recognized or praised. It was simply about doing the right thing. After the family left, Keanu and Ethan walked back to the lounge area together. "You know," Ethan said quietly, "I keep thinking about what you did for the angry client last week. And now with the boy. You really do make a difference without even trying." Keanu smiled faintly. "I don't know if it's trying. It's just noticing people. Seeing them. A small moment of kindness can change someone's whole day, sometimes more than they realize." Ethan nodded, feeling the truth in that statement. For the first time, he understood that greatness wasn't measured in awards, money, or fame. It was measured in how you made people feel, how you treated them when no one was watching, when the world assumed you were untouchable, or when it would have been easier to look away. The day continued, and Ethan found himself applying these lessons constantly. When a tired cleaner accidentally dropped a tray, he helped without complaint. When a nervous passenger spilled coffee on his papers, Ethan offered a reassuring smile instead of a sigh. Every action, no matter how small, felt significant now. By afternoon, the terminal had quieted down. Keanu prepared to board his flight, gathering his small backpack and walking toward the jet waiting on the tarmac. Ethan accompanied him, walking alongside with a sense of quiet reflection. "You know," Ethan said, "I never realized how much one person could change an entire environment just by being who they are." Keanu glanced at him, eyes calm and understanding. "It's not just me. Everyone has that potential. But it takes awareness and courage to actually act on it." Ethan smiled. "I think I'm starting to see it." Keanu gave a small nod. "Good, remember, it's the little things. A kind word, a smile, patience when it's hard, helping someone without expecting anything in return. Those are the things that really matter." The jet engines began to hum as the boarding process completed. Keanu paused and looked at Ethan once more. "Keep noticing, Ethan, keep caring. You'll see how far it can go." "I will," Ethan replied, his voice steady. Keanu stepped onto the jet, gave a small wave, and then disappeared down the aisle toward his seat. The engines roared to life. The wheels rolled along the runway, and within moments, the jet lifted smoothly into the sky, leaving behind a trail of quiet inspiration. Ethan stood by the window for a long time, watching the plane disappear into the clouds. The memory of that week and every small interaction he had witnessed filled him with a sense of calm and purpose. It was a feeling he knew would remain with him forever. Later that evening, after the terminal emptied and the sun dipped below the horizon, Ethan walked home along quiet streets bathed in soft streetlight. He reflected on the lessons Keanu had shared, not just through words but through actions: humility, patience, awareness, and kindness. They were not complicated lessons, yet they were profound, powerful enough to change the way he lived, the way he interacted with others, and even the way he thought about himself. As he reached his apartment, he thought about the small gestures he could carry forward: a smile to a stranger, patience in moments of frustration, recognition for someone who often went unnoticed. These were the things that made the world feel lighter, safer, and better. In the days and weeks that followed, Ethan found himself applying these lessons constantly. The staff noticed a change in him. His colleagues remarked on his calm, patient demeanor and the way he treated everyone with quiet respect. He found that even small acts of attention, helping a new employee learn a procedure, encouraging someone during a busy shift, or listening carefully to a passenger, could ripple out in unexpected ways. Ethan understood now what Keanu had shown him. Greatness was not about attention, money, or status. It was about how you made others feel, about the human connections you fostered, about the quiet acts of care that often went unnoticed. Those were the moments that mattered, the moments that built respect, trust, and love. Even months later, Ethan still remembered the look on Keanu's face when he had calmly guided the angry client, the quiet reassurance to the lost boy, and the gentle encouragement he had given to the staff. Each memory reminded him of the same lesson. True kindness was deliberate, quiet, and profoundly human. One evening, as Ethan sat by the same window overlooking the runway, he noticed the golden glow of the sunset reflecting off the jets. The quiet terminal felt like a small sanctuary, a place where people came and went carrying their worries, joys, and fears. And for the first time, Ethan realized that he had a choice every day to bring calm, patience, and kindness into that space. To notice people, to treat them as human beings, not just as tasks, responsibilities, or clients. And in that moment, he understood the greatest lesson of all. It wasn't fame, money, or power that made someone remarkable. It was the courage to be humble, the awareness to see others, and the willingness to act with genuine kindness. And sometimes the simplest gestures, a smile, a word of encouragement, a patient hand, could change the world more than anyone realized. For Ethan, the memory of Keanu Reeves's visits would always be a guiding light, not because of the celebrity he was, but because of the person he had revealed himself to be, calm, humble, patient, and human. And as the sky darkened and the last jets disappeared into the evening, Ethan felt a quiet sense of gratitude. He had witnessed something rare, a reminder that being human could be extraordinary, simply by caring for others and leading with kindness, and that, he knew, was a lesson worth carrying for a lifetime.